Thank you, Pete. Thank you, Catherine. Questions?
Has Speaker Johnson reached out to you at all since the January 6er made a threat on your life?
No.
Thank you, Mr. Leader. At this point, do you think a new CR is needed past that November 21st date? And if so, what would be an acceptable end date? And would it have to be paired with some type of vote on an ACA extension?
What we need to occur right now is what Democrats have maintained from the very beginning. At this point, we need to reopen the government. We need to enact a spending bill that actually meets the needs of the American people in terms of their health, their safety, and their economic well-being, particularly in terms of driving down the high cost of living, while at the same time decisively addressing the Republican health care crisis that grows graver by the day. Our position over the last several weeks has remained consistent. Cancel the cuts, lower the cost, save health care, address the urgency of the expiration of the Affordable Care Act tax credits. This is not a partisan issue. And that's why we've seen Democrats and now many Republicans, traditional conservatives and right-wing conservatives like Marjorie Taylor Greene, all acknowledge what Democrats have been saying for weeks, which is that the Congress needs to act to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits to prevent tens of millions of Americans from experiencing dramatically increased premiums, co-pays, and deductibles. Those increases will devastate the American people. It's unacceptable. And House Republicans need to cancel their vacations, get back into town, so we can do the business of the American people. Back.
Thank you, Leader Jeffries. Do you have a response to Trump refusing to meet with you and Leader Schumer until the shutdown's over?
Donald Trump has spent more time on the golf course than he has in talking to Democrats on Capitol Hill to reopen the government, to enact a spending agreement that's bipartisan, and to address the Republican health care crisis. His behavior, unpresidential, unhinged, unpatriotic, un-American, throughout this process, speaks for itself and makes clear that Republicans shut the government down and have had zero interest in opening it up. Why? Because they'd rather inflict this kind of pain on hardworking federal civil servants and the American people than provide health care that's affordable to everyday Americans, working class Americans, and middle class Americans. Catherine, please.
Thank you, Mr. Leader. Going back to the CR conversation, some Senate Republicans, including Leader Thune, have said the longer the shutdown goes on, the higher the likelihood that a full-year CR would be necessary. What are your thoughts on that conversation kind of intensifying in the Senate? And maybe Chair Aguilar as an appropriator. I know appropriators hate those words, full-year CR, so I'm hoping you can explain to the American people why that's something that probably most Democrats would oppose in this situation.
Well, let me let Chairman Aguilar and Whip Clark respond, and then I'll address the question as well.
Just a reminder, Whip Clark is an appropriator on leave, by the way, in her leadership capacity. As the leader mentioned, none of us want a continuing resolution. We want government open. I want people to go to the Smithsonian's. I want park rangers to be able to work. All of this is so incredibly important, and it's why Democrats have been very clear we want government to open. But that takes both parties. That takes Democrats and Republicans. And what frustrated me is, as you heard before, Michael, in the caucus press conferences, is each time Republicans carried a bill in appropriations, they did it in a hyper-partisan environment. And what do I mean by that? They marched to a number, they used numbers that Donald Trump wanted, that they knew the Senate wasn't going to support, that they knew didn't have bipartisan support, and yet they carried forward. And Tom Cole, a well-meaning person, executed this strategy, knowing full well it was a waste of time. And what happened as a result? We wasted months when we could have been negotiating, when we could have been working to find common ground in a bipartisan way on actual funding bills. The deadline of September 30th has always been the deadline. It's always been the end of the fiscal year. It seems like House Republicans just maybe tuned in, week 2 of their vacation to figure this out. we knew this in April, we knew this in May and June, and it's just incredibly unfortunate that House Republicans wasted time when they could have been working in a bipartisan way. And our hope, our focus, our goal, we don't want to continue resolution for 14 months. I know the chairman of the Ways and Means Committee just mentioned that. But we want actual government open. We want actual funding bills. But we want those done in a bipartisan way. The American people want that. They want us to address the healthcare crisis. It seems like House Republicans and Senate Republicans are the only ones who haven't realized that.
Yeah, it is amazing to me that the new conversation is, well, what's the length of the next CR? Let's back up to where we are today. We are in the 22nd day of a shutdown that is completely avoidable. By coming to the table and talking about the American people, and that what they promised, what the Republicans promised, and the president promised on day one, we're gonna help lower your costs. And everything has been made harder and more expensive. So come to the table. Why are you talking about the length of the CR? Come to the table and negotiate with us. End this healthcare crisis. Help the American people. And I repeat this every week, but 60% of households are not making it, unable to provide the basics. And so let's bring those voices in, and by refusing to even show up to do your job, the arrogance and the dismissal of what's happening in people's lives, how they feel when they know the threat to being able to provide for their families, being able to afford housing, groceries, their utility bill, and then this blow. I mean, how are people possibly supposed to be able to afford an increase of $2,000 in their monthly insurance premium? This is the issue we need to be talking about. And then we can work on making sure that we reopen government quickly. And the other, like, they are now trying to reimagine themselves as the champions of federal workers, of the champions of food programs and health care, when all they have done is take an axe to all of that since they came into office, and deliberately, their word, inflict trauma on people who serve the public. So come to the table, come back to work, hear the voice of American families who are struggling back into the work you do. Then we can come together and get government reopened quickly and get healthcare costs back under control for American families.
Thank you.
We're in the midst of a cost of living crisis here in this country. Donald Trump and Republicans promised to lower the cost of living on day one. Costs aren't going down, they're going up. Electricity prices through the roof. Housing costs up. Grocery costs up. Child care costs up. And now Republicans refuse to do anything to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits, which is going to result in tens of millions of people experiencing dramatically increased premiums, copays, and deductibles. It's out of control. It's a cost of living crisis and it's a healthcare crisis at the same time. And yet Republicans continue to ignore it, refuse to deal with it. And on top of all of that, we're in a moment where millions of Americans are about to increase their experience with heightened food insecurity, with hunger, because of the one big ugly bill and the fact that Republicans enacted the largest cut to nutritional assistance in American history. These are all quality of life issues that have to be dealt with right now. And yet Republicans want to talk about process and their my way or the highway approach, their take it or leave it approach, which is what they've been visiting on the American people this entire year in terms of their extremism. And it's all unacceptable. Let's come back to work, let's sit down, let's negotiate a bipartisan agreement, let's reopen the government, Let's address the high cost of living in the United States of America. Let's address the hunger that you're creating. And of course, let's address the Republican healthcare crisis.
Mr. Leader, given the rampant misconduct we're seeing among immigration agents, most recently on Canal Street yesterday in Chinatown, New